Welcome to Impact Quantum, the podcast for the quantum curious, hosted by humans, moderated by me, Bailey, and powered by caffeine, ambition, and the occasional entangled particle. Today's episode is practically vibrating with insight, though that may just be the cryogenic cooling. Frank and Candice Gilhooly take you on a globetrotting journey through the cutting-edge state of quantum across 30 countries. From Canada's collaborative charm to Israel's crystal chandeliers, yes, actual ones. Dangling behind the alphacy, they dissect national strategies like digital surgeons with a roadmap. They discuss everything from billion-dollar funding races to the strategic alliances forming faster than you can say post-quantum cryptography. Plus, a sneak peek at the Quantum Readiness Index, where countries are ranked not on fashion, but on funding, startups, and who can pronounce Majorana without accidentally advertising weight loss pills. Also, the workforce crisis no one saw coming. Not enough brains, or too many brains in the wrong rooms. Physics PhDs, marketers, storytellers, all are needed to keep quantum companies from imploding under the weight of their own whiteboards. And if you're wondering how they built a global map of this chaos in 90 minutes, vibe coding. Yes, it's a real thing. No, I don't know how it works either. But apparently, it makes beautiful reports and occasionally unlocks the secrets of the universe. So settle in. Grab your favorite beverage, hot, cold, or superfluid, and prepare to have your brain simultaneously stimulated and entangled.
Hello and welcome back to Impact Quantum, the podcast for the quantum curious. And with me, as always, is the most quantum curious person I know, Candice Gilhooly. How's it going, Candice?
It's going great. Thanks, Frank. Are you enjoying your summer?
I am. I like this part of summer because it means the summer's almost over.
Okay.
I like the fall. I'm not gonna
I
lie.
love the fall. That's fair. That's fair.
And it also means the kids are going to go back to school. I think the kids are ready to go back.
Yeah, this is the time when they kind of master boredom, and then you're like really, really proud, and then you've done your job.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So there's so much going on. I mean, it's
there
kind
really
of crazy.
Is.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy year in quantum, hasn't it?
It really
keep in mind, we didn't relaunch the show until what, February?
That's right. We started in late February, and then there were announcements here and there, like the Majerno was a big announcement, but now it's like it's coming out of everywhere, which is why dun 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 I decided that I really wanted to look at quantum from a global perspective. And
right. Before we get any hate mail, it's Majorana, I think is how you pronounce
Majorana. I'm never going to pronounce that right.
Okay.
Majorana. That's it.
I got slapped on the wrist a couple of times with that.
It's Majorana, but the weight loss drug is Majerno. So
I was gonna say, I think that's a weight loss drug. No, I didn't mean to derail you, but you've been doing a fantastic work on these country reports. And I think you started with Canada or the UK. I don't remember.
I started with Canada, and I got a really good reaction out of Canada, and I said, oh my goodness, I definitely had to do the States next. And then I kind of sat back. I said, I really got to do the UK too, to kind of just get a little bit of a picture. And then I said, what?
I think you were just going to do the G7 countries, because when the G7 had their meeting, quantum was surprisingly kind of on the list, and I was like, would not have guessed that.
It's a big deal in Canada right now.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. There's I know there's a new alliance that's happening between France and Canada, and they're opening up a quantum facility in Sherbrooke, Quebec.
Nice.
And that's really kind of exciting that putting real industry behind the ideas and employing people to move towards quantum, and Canada's part of it made me very happy being here.
That's cool. It's fascinating to kind of see this unfold, and we've talked about this in the show, how there's not just Silicon Valley, right? There's also places where this is popping up, right? Whether it's Israel, the UK, Ireland. You have, we did a quote when we were collating all of this into one big super global report, and we'll get into what the cool stuff we did with that in a minute. You did about 30 countries.
Yeah, right. And at one point I'm like, oh my goodness, like, am I doing too many? And I'm like, no, I'm doing just the right amount because not every continent has got something going on, but there's certain continents that have a lot going on. And it's important to see who the players are and who they're aligning with and why they're acting the way they are. It just gives us a clue as to what we can hope to see in the future too.
Right.
So I also, after we had our conversation with Nir Alfasi,
which is a great show. Everyone should go back and listen to.
Absolutely. And if they go back and they listen to it and they watch it, then if they look behind him, he's got, a quantum computer. It's like
the chandelier.
Right?
Yeah, and the crystal chandelier or whatever people call it. Yeah.
Exactly. It was so exciting. I felt like I was back like with Superman when everything was with crystals and you put the
yeah.
Oh my God. It looked amazing. Like I was geeking out and I was like, Nir, move over. I want to see more of what's behind you.
Well, he had like a virtual background. I don't know if that made it into the video, but it was definitely in the green room where he's like, should I turn my background off? No, we were talking about like he has an actual one behind him, like he turned off the virtual background. And I'm like, dude, that's way cooler than like, a logo.
Absolutely. It was fantastic. And
yeah.
that got me thinking about Israel. And, I'm like, Israel, has always got something going on. And they might not necessarily be talking about it, but that certainly doesn't mean they're not doing something about it.
Well, Tel Aviv has a hot startup scene.
Yes. Yes, it does.
I mean, like super hot and data driven. We've gotten a lot of guests come from the Tel Aviv startup scene.
Okay.
And because there's just a lot of interesting work being done in data and AI there, as well as quantum apparently too.
Absolutely. And so then that's when I said, you know what, let me look at, North and South America. Let me look at Western Europe. Let me look at Eastern Europe. Let me look at the Middle East. Let me look at Africa. And really kind of, and then of course, you definitely have to hit, Australia, New Zealand, just cause, they're out there, but still, they're still, in the infancy stage, which is a lot of government research, a lot of money going into the government to do this kind of research. And that's a great place to be. Like there's nothing wrong with they don't have necessarily super amounts of industry, although there is Q control that's out in Australia.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And they're really popping up a lot in the news lately. So, it's kind of like anybody's game, know? And
well, what's really interesting is actually, what we could do? What if, because we're not doing video on this, but what if we did a screen share and then for folks that are listening, I kind of don't want to bury the lead too much longer, but we created a report that basically I'm sharing my screen. Okay. And we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So we used the data that we collated all the stuff that you did, and we used that data, and we created a global map that you can go to right now, impactquantum.com/global report. Capital G, capital R. We'll put the link in the show notes. And it basically shows where quantum stuff is happening. And according to the data that we've collated here, there's the information on 30 countries, approximately $7.3 billion of funding worldwide. And we also computed this notion of a readiness index, and you can see that. Basically, it's a combination of public spending relative to GDP, how many startups are in the area, how many incubators there are, that sort of thing. And what's really cool about it is once you kind of look at it on a map, you can start seeing patterns, evolve, right?
Right.
So right now I'm looking at, North America, right? And North America, the US's index is 4.9, a scale from 0 to 5. Canada is right behind at 4.5. What's also interesting is you see a lot of innovation happening in Latin America, which is kind of middle of the road. Basically, Argentina at 3, Argentina and Chile at 3, Brazil clocking in at 3.2, and Mexico at 3.4. And when you mentioned Australia and New Zealand, Australia is one of a couple of countries in the Asia Pacific that shows up green with a readiness score about 4.5, 4.5.
Right. They have that company Quantum,
Right.
that does photonic research. And they're really backing that a lot.
Yeah.
And so, they got a crazy exciting target. They want to do a 1,000,000 qubit machine by 2028. But they have a timeline, and they're showing strategically how they're moving towards that. So they're really not someone to discount at all.
No, and I would say Australia has a pretty solid, track record of producing companies that we're all aware of, right? There's, I think Atlassian is Australian. Canva is definitely Australian.
Okay.
I think at one point, I don't know if this is still true, but the richest woman in Australia, I think, was the founder of Canva.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think
Good
so.
for her, because Canva's made me a rock star. So
Canva is amazing. I can't say enough good things.
Oh,
I can't say enough good things about Canva.
Seriously, the experience, it's just so user friendly. It just really is.
But also, even before the AI parts, and I don't really mess around with the AI parts there, it just streamlined the workflows that normally you would have done in something like Photoshop. But Photoshop is, a lot of work. And if you look at the early histories of the other podcast, right, Data Driven, it was really hard. It was a real difficult aspect of doing the artwork for the show and making it consistent.
Okay.
And but now, I mean, when we push out a show, I mean, we get the graphics done in a minute or two. Right?
It's just quite fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing what you can done. So if you're not using Canva, you totally should.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said.
But I find it interesting that, if you look, looking at the Asia Pacific region, right? Japan is doing quite well. China, obviously. India. And then you have it's interesting. You kind of have the orange middle, which orange kind of means the middle part. And that includes, you have reports for Indonesia. And,
also, check out Singapore. Singapore.
I don't think the Singapore system is in this iteration of the report. So we need to update that data. But
okay, we'll update
but
that.
I know Singapore is in there. You can switch to table view, and if you take a look. Let's go by alphabetical name. Right? I don't think Singapore is in this.
Okay, we have to fix that.
Because it is.
Aha!
Oh, but the data is not completed. We didn't finish the final part of it. So it says TBD.
Okay. All right. So
Singapore is also a small country in a very big area of ocean. So I wonder how we're going to represent that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a fair problem. But Singapore, I want to mention, they're really interesting. They're known as a precision orchestrator. They're a small state with a big vision, and they run quantum in the country like a startup with a military grade business plan.
Interesting.
So they're really interesting, and they're focusing on communication and sensors and processors. Really interesting what they're doing out there.
Yeah, and I think it's just very nice to see the companies, nation states, they are really getting on board with this technology from the get-go, as opposed to kind of with computers, it was really only a handful of countries and handful of geographies in each of those countries that really took the lead. Whereas I see this is much more decentralized. And
Yes.
I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Yes. I think that also a future iteration of this report would be to like show the strategic alliances
Yes.
that are happening, obviously within the G7, but also outside of the G7, and who's really kind of who's really unifying together that you wouldn't necessarily think that they would be doing that. It's very exciting, and obviously there's lots of alliances going on right now, which is exciting. But I was talking the other day to a future guest that we are going to have. It's Dr. Rob Suter.
Who wrote
And
the book Dancing with Qubits, if I
yes,
believe. Yep. Cool book.
and oh, he's really fantastic and incredibly just not just smart, but he's a phenomenal communicator. And I was talking to him about why does it have to feel like a Sputnik race
Right.
where everyone's doing something at the same time, because when I looked at the report and I looked at the challenges that all of these countries basically were facing universally, the first challenge that they all had was they didn't have enough brains. There's a
brain drain comes up a lot
mhm.
in those various reports, and I think that's interesting. Um,
Well,
I
for a
mean,
multitude of reasons, right?
well, multitude of reasons, right? I think one is the obvious, right? Like, there's not a lot of PhD physicist types in the world, right?
Right.
Our factories, so to speak, for making them are very low output. But then there's also the counter argument of, we've spoken to a number of guests who say there's enough people with PhDs in
There's enough people. There's if you throw a rock, you're going to hit a physicist in Montreal.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, do you need any more? And I think that's an interesting case too. And that's a big thesis for our show, or at least the show's, reboot was um you can appeal to everyone.
Well, right. And there were people that were on the academic side that wanted to find out how to go over the bridge into the industry side.
Right.
And the thing is, there doesn't seem to be a loss for academics. There's a tremendous amount of academics out there that are not in industry. And if that's what is needed, in industry to make this all happen, is to get more academics on your side and get them working with you so you can work alongside, the genius that they have. That might bring things to fruition faster.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, and like we were talking, like, if you launch a quantum company, you're gonna need someone to do the marketing. You're gonna need someone. You're gonna need a PhD or two or three at the core of your technical organization, but you don't need to have an entire boardroom of PhDs in physics.
No, absolutely not. In fact, that would not serve you well at
It
all.
might even be detrimental, realistically, right?
Absolutely.
Because, like, how are you going to go to, and I'm surprised at the number of people who don't know this phrase. Maybe it's a Microsoftism, but HIPPO.
Oh, I love that. Tell everybody what that is.
So HIPPO stands for highest paid person's opinion.
I love that.
And like, how are you going to go to someone? And this came out in the Yuval episode, right? Like,
right. That's one we released this week. Check it out, everybody.
Yeah, go check it out. Shameless self-promotion. The you have to, these systems are not cheap, whether you use them in the cloud, whether you use them, you get an on-prem solution. He was referring to an on-prem solution where they basically had to realize, like, oh, we sold this, and now we have to go on site and configure it and set it up. Somebody has to rack them and stack them, as I like to say.
Right.
And that's going to require IT engineers, electricians, this all the usual suspects, and the customer success engineers. Right. So like it really is going to take a team of people to get something in production. And even if you're using the cloud, right? Like, Alex Kahn, who was a guest in the show, awesome book too, the book that he has. He was saying like, he has parts of his book where it's like, if you run this code, it's going to cost you real money. I think he was telling me that if you ran everything without any kind of guardrails that's in the book, it would cost you about $20,000 to $30,000. Right. So we're, and this is, so if you have a quantum startup, or you have dreams of having a quantum startup, at some point you got to sell something to keep the lights on. And at some point to sell something, probably multiple points, you have to win over the hippo's opinion. Right. So you have to, so you're going to need enterprise sales type people. You're going to, that can take kind of the raw technical data and kind of translate it into something that someone who has authority to sign checks that big will sign off on.
Right. And if you're able to essentially solve the problems that company is having,
right,
that's what they want to hear, right? Like it all comes back to solving
a real problem, right? And getting a return on the effort that goes in there. And I think that's a skill. Like enterprise software sales is a skill all its own. And it's
and then don't. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I say, but then you also need the marketing people who are going to be telling the story.
Yep.
To get to get the company, to get the prospective companies excited about what they're doing. They got to tell the story and understand enough about what's going on to tell the story that resonates.
Absolutely. And if you want to go all in, you got to get developer advocates, or developer evangelists to kind of go out to the conferences and speak at these events and things like that. It takes a village to have a successful company.
Yes.
And I think that's what and you go back about 10, 15 years, right? Like, there were a lot of mathematicians that are, in the AI space now that, a decade ago would have just been happy and content to be in academia. I don't think quantum's going to be that much different, a decade from now, right? Or 2 decades. I mean, depending on who you want to believe, right? But in the future, not that distant though, future, you're going to have these things. And, if you're following the AI job market, Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly offering hundreds of millions of dollars to capture, key engineers from rivals. Right.
Oh, right.
Who's to say that can't happen here? So my advice is learn physics, kids.
Right. Start with the math.
Start with math and science, kids.
Right.
Which is interesting because apparently that's Jensen Huang and Elon Musk's advice in light of kind of these vibe coding solutions that are out there.
Well, that's also the thing. So, for example, so let's say you can't do math, and you can't do physics. Well,
Right.
but you're a really smart linguist or historian, right? Then you
Right.
know how to research, you know how to investigate something and how to explain it to other people. You can write, and
Right.
therefore you're going to be logical enough that you can really kind of work on prompt engineering, and then and then to get to something that you want to get farther into with vibe coding. I mean, we created something crazy with vibe coding.
Yep.
Just like it never did I realize what it really meant until in practice was being created before.
So that global report was created through vibe coding, basically.
Which is
I will admit to that, but which is crazy. Cool, because when you were showing me, we were talking about this, and you had analyzed about 30 some odd countries, and you were thinking about how do we make this a how do we make this a global story?
Hmm.
And I was like, that's interesting. And then I think you fed all your reports into Notebook LM.
That's right.
And Notebook LM, if you don't use it, highly recommend you at least play around with it. But one of the options in there is a mind map. And it will basically take any topic that you feed it and it'll break it down into little chunks that you can explore further. So I was like, what we really need is some kind of mind map thing. And when you showed me, first off, it's a tragedy you can't export the structure that it produces, but I'll get off my
Yes.
soapbox.
Because really the mind maps are phenomenal that they create, but no, you can't. You
No,
can't
and
download them and then use them. No.
I mean, you could
Doesn't work.
download them as PNGs, but if you expand every node, depending how complicated things are,
Right.
it becomes a like a massive file.
Right.
And yeah, I guess you could do OCR on it and stuff like that, but that just sounds like a royal pain. But in any case, I was just like, well, what if we vibe coded kind of all of this stuff out, took all the raw data and vibe coded a solution where you can explore the globe, and that's what that report is. And that took us about maybe 90 minutes from concept to like refined.
Right.
But I mean, the
Right.
first version was up and out in, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And then I definitely slowed down the process. But
No, I wanted your input too, right? So
but no,
like,
but we had this idea, and I said, but we want to see it like a globe, like
yeah, I
something
was
that's
like,
like,
I don't think I was explaining it right. Like, so I was just like, and it's funny because you said it reminds you of War Games, like that old movie when they
yes,
showed and that's the look I was going for. Like, that's
exactly.
kind
I'm
of
like,
how I saw it.
that
So
was
when you said
great.
that, I was like, yes, that's the look I was going for. But it gives you a really good way of exploring. And like when you look at it, you see patterns, right? You'll see, obviously North America is going to, dominate, right? Because you have 3 of the G7 on one
Hmm.
continent. But there's also pockets in Asia and pockets in Europe, and you know, it'll be interesting to kind of see. It's another way to visualize and explore data. So I
Hmm.
think it just shows you that quantum computing research is a global phenomenon.
Yes.
It's not isolated to just Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv or China, right? It truly is going to be a global kind of effort. And I think the only thing that's going to keep it from everybody collaborating together is just the sheer national security risks that are associated with it.
Sharing some of that kind of vital
I
information.
mean, whoever breaks the RSA first is going to have a significant advantage, and there's no traditional incentive for anyone to help, figure that out. Does that make sense?
Yes. No,
You
it
know,
does.
I
So
mean, yes, it would be nice if we could all collaborate, but realistically, nobody's going to collaborate because there's just too much at stake with the RSA situation.
yeah, that's just the Canadian in me now.
Right,
That,
right, right, right.
like when I heard that, Canada, was like collaborative and bridge builder, I was all like, love it,
Well, no, and I think for medical research, I think that's going to be more the case, right? Medical, anything that doesn't have an immediately obvious um, military or industrial complex type tie-in
Hmm.
to the technology, I think will. Um, but but certainly, and it'll be interesting too. Like once RSA is broken, maybe once that's broken, people will be more willing to collaborate, right? Because the cat's out of the bag at that point.
Right. They have to come up
You
with
know,
something else. And yeah,
I don't know, but
absolutely.
like I just like as much as like, gee, it would be nice, but realistically, and it could be the fact I live in DC, right? The DC area, and like maybe I'm just like pessimistic about how people working together. Um, but yeah, there's a lot going on, and I I have a meeting I got to jump to in a few minutes, but I would like to put in a plug for our book, if I may.
Absolutely.
So it's called Quantum Curious. It's available on Kindle. It's like what, $3?
Yeah. And the genesis of it was really kind of looking at what happened in the first 12 episodes of this season.
Yep.
To say, okay, I'm quantum curious. What does that really mean? What does that entail?
Yep.
And really kind of you get to really understand on a truly beginner level basic concepts that feels good that you understand it. But what we always say is the more you delve in, the less you feel like you know.
But you know what? Just so you think that we're not in it for the money, if you join our newsletter, you get it for free as a
There you
PDF.
go.
So just want to put that out there into the universe.
Sign up for the newsletter, shameless plug. Sign up for the
Yep.
newsletter and you get a copy for free.
Yep.
And there's more analysis like that coming.
And I highly recommend you go to the website. I know, right? Like, sounds like a totally self-promotional thing. But if you go to the website, on the top menu, there is actually, let me take a look at it now. In between my dog pawing at me. We're having like a lightning storm right now. So that's,
okay.
In the top of the menu, there's country reports.
Mm-hmm.
We have everything kind of in one place in terms of all the country reports that you've done. And there's actually more you're coming up with.
Absolutely. And
so
it's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I think
going.
it's people are gonna look back at this moment in time as like, like the when this is all very nascent and people are getting excited about it.
Right.
So apparently this dog is freaking out because we're getting lightning strikes nearby.
And you have to run to a meeting.
I have to run to a meeting. So I just want to encourage everyone, go to impactquantum.com. Everything there. We also have a blog now that's very active, and we changed the design of the site.
Yes.
Which
I think it looks
great. I think it looks great. I don't think we're done.
No, but we're getting there, and it's exciting because the content is fresh and new. It's updating multiple times a day. And yeah, we want to hear what you think. Our YouTube channel now has even more content. We love, it's got.
Oh yeah, we have a YouTube channel now.
Right, it's got great amount of views. We just want some more subscribers, right?
There you go.
But that's what this is all about, starting at the beginning and understanding and being curious, and learning together. So.
And with that, we'll let the AI finish the show.
Okay.
And that, dear listeners, concludes another thrilling episode of Impact Quantum. Proof that you can, in fact, have your brain stretched to the limits of comprehension without pulling a single muscle. A huge thank you to Henning Deckant for taking us on a guided tour of the quantum frontier, where the hype cycles are dizzying, the breakthroughs are genuine, and the acronyms, plentiful. If you enjoyed this episode, do share it with a friend, preferably one who claims they don't get quantum computing. You'll either enlighten them or confuse them gloriously. Either way, a win. Until next time, keep your bits entangled, your superpositions stable. And remember, in quantum computing, as in life, collapse happens when you least expect it. Cheers.